Welcome, everyone. Here we are, Devi's Voice, our bi-weekly sharings from our heart, our wombs, on most inspiring and interesting and transformative topics, that taboo topics often we like to discuss. Like last week we had Elisa gave a most beautiful class into Mother Nature and her gifts and how we can reconnect. Last week we had Dr. Shari and we talked about the word witch and how that has been demonized. And today we are here again, Elisa and I together. And yeah, Elisa is my dear sister. We've met quite a few years ago in Sicily during a Vedanta retreat. And since then we have joined our hearts in devotion and love in the service of the sacred feminine through the Be Woman project. And I'm so happy to be here today with you, Elisa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sharada, the most beautiful, dear Devi sisters, teachers. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Hi, everyone.
Hello, please say hi. And yeah, tell us where you're from, and so we can get to know you. We can't really follow right now the comments. We will see the comments later because we're streaming here through Zoom, but we will see them and we'll definitely answer. And here today, and Elisa and I are here to talk about desire, nature, and the embodied healer, dedicated to this program that we have put together called Rising Witch, the Embodied Healer, a sacred sexuality and natural remedy course that starts in a week, actually. And we wanted to give you a little, some insight and some understanding of what awaits you in this course and how we have come to do this work that we are very, very passionate about. We both like to call ourselves witches. and we're going to share with you some of our deepest inspirations and also some of our own story that brought us to do this work. So Elisa, how have you come to embrace the witch in you and your witchy side and your connection to Mother Nature, and how are you bringing that into the Rising Witch program that we're going to start in a week?
Yeah, how that whole started, I don't even know actually, because I don't really see a beginning of this connection with Bhumi Devi, with Mother Nature. I felt it was always there for me, protecting me and really sustaining my steps. When I was a little girl, I used to spend a lot of time in the woods around my house, in the fields, in the cornfields. Every time I had some heaviness in my heart, I used to run away from home and just lay down my belly on the soil and breathe there without knowing what was happening, but that was really calming and I felt sustained. And then traveling a lot in my 20s, I realized how no matter how sometimes alone, lonely or lost or just in pure amazement I was, but totally unrooted in new places. I could just focus my gaze on a mountain, on a river, put my hands in the water to feel that I was home, that I belonged there, no matter where I was and what I was living in my life in that moment. I was always home, sustained. And then one day I decided, after spending a lot of time with native earth people in Nepal and in the Himalayas mainly, to live more like them. So I remember it was during a permaculture gathering in the Himalayas. I was living there at the time. One old farmer told me, so he didn't ask, do you own land? But he asked me, where is the land that you are caring for, that you are protecting and taking care of, and where your family is? And I told him, no, I don't have any, like, I'm traveling, I'm here, like a citizen of the world, and I belong everywhere. And it was really what I felt. But then I felt, yeah, and I saw in his eyes that he had some kind of pity on me. No, you don't have this. You can discover that this special intimate relationship with one piece of land somewhere. And then I ended up buying some land and all of that. But I found that relationship not really owing something, just looking at a leaf, establishing a relationship with plants, with herbs, and then I started to deepen. This was 15 years ago, more or less, my studies on Ayurveda, deep ecology, to really felt that embrace of Mother Nature even more.
I could feel it as I was listening to you. Yeah, so beautiful, and it shines through. So precious. Elisa also shares Ayurveda for women in the Heron's Journey, our 3 months Women's Circle Facilitator course, and we all love everything that you share. It comes from so deep love and wisdom, and this knowledge. Yeah, it needs to get out there. And so, what is the difference between what you are sharing in, for example, in the Heron's Journey, and here what we're gonna do in the Rising Witch program? Here we are specifically dedicating to topics like her story and sexual wholeness and cervical awakening and sexual traumas, which I will talk more in a little bit. But how does it differ, and what will you bring in exactly?
So during the Heron's Journey, the aim of all that I share is to sustain other women in their journey of becoming women's circle facilitators. And so sharing that knowledge that comes really deeply from the Ayurvedic tradition and wisdom, and is there to be shared with other women. So it's for the participants, the Devi's own benefit, to learn how to take care of themselves in different phases of the life of a woman. So we talk about the moon, the menstruation, the pregnancy, postpartum, and all the phases, the perimenopause, menopause, and it's really sometimes I wouldn't say technical, but we study it in a lot of details. While in these programs, what I really would love to bring is something that comes from a different perspective, like a different way of understanding nature, a different way of learning that comes from intuition, from the feelings, from what we learn to our senses as embodied goddesses and healers. So we will establish a relationship with nature and play with it. So we'll make together things like tinctures, ointments. We will talk about all the different ways we can interact and interconnect and find our own way to really establish this connection with Bhumi Devi, with essential oils, because like every way is different, and we can connect with a different part of the plant, its energy or its chemicals, and there is a lot to learn, but a lot to experience as well. And it will come and it will touch the body first, our senses, so that we can own up the ability and reclaim our capacity of knowing, learning, and knowing through intuition.
Yeah, learning and knowing through intuition, and that's something that we have been disconnected from for a very long time. As we maybe remember, for those who saw our talk with Dr. Sharin regarding to the demonization of the witch and those called witches, like our natural connection to Bhumi Devi and the learning through our intuition and sharing, that was something that was part of our existence as a woman, as a being. And I just watched yesterday also a very intense documentary in regard to the burning times of the witches. And so I'm really marinating myself in this topic right now, and since for quite a while, but much more now because we're going to start this course. And isn't it interesting how, like, again, I'm mentioning this again and again, but so that we really see how it affects us today. This suppression of the feminine sexuality and the feminine natural abilities to heal. Those were two of the main crimes just a few hundred years ago. Women getting burned at the stake for expressing their femininity, expressing their feminine sexual power, and expressing and sharing and showing their natural ability to heal. And the midwives and the healers, these were all women, which then slowly got replaced by men. The men couldn't bear witness women seeing in so much power and being able to heal, that then those were the women that were called witches. And so I know how will this course help someone with what you're going to share to reclaim those witchy powers?
Feeling that the source of that power is already in us, is within us, and was never dead. Is there, that flame, and we know like how to fuel it. It's like sometimes in certain moments of life things happen and we realize that we know how to behave. Like for me, it happened when I gave birth to my daughter, but also when I separated from my partner. Like all this moment in life when the veils is open and you just know that there is that force within you guiding you. And through this program, we will really connect with that, with all the things that we know already, and with the ability that we have to play with this knowledge. So freely, freely, because in our imagination, in the imagination of many people, in the collective imagination, when we talk about witchiness and witches, what arises is this image of also persecution, which is true, it happened, but sadness, heaviness, and darkness. But before that, being a witch, what was it?
Yes.
What did it mean? Witch was a woman that was really living fully her body, in touch with her sexuality, in a loving, intimate relationship with her body, her sexuality, Mother Nature, the herbs, the remedies. It was not heavy and dark at all. It was uplifted, right? So this can be rediscovered.
Yeah, so beautifully said. So beautifully. It doesn't have to be heavy and dark. And naturally, the heaviness and the darkness will be there because there is a story there, and it will probably surface for most of us. That is why we also really bring in the knowledge of the trauma covered by 𝗏𝗏 Lisboa, who is going to share so beautifully, especially designed or arranged the wisdom of trauma dedicated for women, because women have experienced trauma in different ways than men. Men also have gone through a lot of trauma, but how trauma really affects the women in a very specific way. So the darkness and the heaviness is all part of our reclamation of our witchiness. But then we, like Elisa said so beautifully, it's not supposed to be like that, and it doesn't have to be like that. And so for that is a big reason why I wanted also for us to have this 2 months time where we can dive together into the truth of what it means to be a witch, make space and bring in the knowledge of the traumas and the darkness that has been there, but then really rising from the ashes and reveling in the power and in the wisdom and in the knowledge and in all that has been there for so long in us. It's all still there in us. It's not gone. It's not lost. It might feel like lost, but since I've been doing all this work, like the power that has come back and the confidence that has come back, and at times still again, fear comes and shame comes and questions comes and doubts come, and I'm talking about these topics and just sharing something from the depths of my heart in regard to my own healing, and suddenly some shame can come up, and I'm wondering, or I'm in that moment, I'm acknowledging, wow, just for speaking up, how suddenly we feel guilty and again shameful, even though I've been doing this work for so long. That the shame and the guilt is a very big aspect that has been covered and or has been infused in our whole system, and that's why it's also scary to step into a circle of women. If you, for example, for those that are listening and experience some like calling to really wanting to join, but at the same time have fears, that's very natural. When I did my courses in the reclamation of my sexuality, there was a lot of fear there, but it was really also an invitation to finally meet that fear and welcome it, and then transform it into dharmic power. I want to say dharmic because like power can also be adharmic. We can abuse that power and misuse it, but then when we are guided by values that we are always including, as the whole teaching that we're sharing in our courses is based in the Vedic teachings, which lies very much on universal values that help us to become incorruptible, powerful beings. And that might even seem something, is that even possible to be powerful and incorruptible? Because most of us have never experienced a culture or society where power and generosity and trust was something that was united. Most of us grew up in cultures where the power was abused and corrupt, and power has been given to the hands of men, and then systematically suppressed women and their power and their expression. And that's what most of us have grown up with, even though we maybe don't, we may see it already. For some of us, we may think like, no, but I grew up in a culture where I was very championed as a woman, and I was given possibilities, and I could study what I wanted to study, and I didn't notice all of that. But when we start to really look at the story and look what are the options that were given to us, and how women have been objectified, and how our education has been, we never learned about anything in regard to her story. It was always his story. We didn't learn any natural remedy courses. We didn't learn a healthy upbringing when it comes to our sexuality. And so all of that has been deeply suppressed. When we look at the medical system, when we look at how women, what is the image that little girls are given in terms of their body, in terms of their menstruation, in terms of becoming a mother, in terms of going into menopause, all these phases that are actually deeply empowering are looked as a disease. And so there has been a systematic suppression of the feminine power and healing abilities, but we are not fully aware of that until we start to really look at it, and we become, it's like, is this really true? It's almost hard to believe sometimes that this really has happened and is still happening. And then once we look at it, we cannot deny it anymore. And we see how it affects us. Then when we start to look at our own behavior, of how we treat our own bodies, of how we treat our relationships. And that's what I'm going to also speak and share more when I'm going to go into the mistress class in a little while, to reclaim our intimate relationship and fill it with confidence, joy, and magic. So I went off a little bit, but just to give some context, because I know many maybe be thinking, oh, this all happened so long time ago, but sometimes we're not fully aware how this still is really very much present in our culture. until today, nowadays. And so it's important to talk about this. So yeah, anything else, Elisa, that you would like to share with women that are here listening to and considering to joining our course and doing this work of reclaiming their sexuality and their natural abilities of healing, and also saying yes to their own desires?
If you are even barely considering joining this course, just do it and follow your heart and follow your intuition. We described many things, but there are going to be so many unseen results that are so difficult to describe from being part of this sisterhood and really do this work, this inner work, for example. Yes, as you were beautifully saying right now, Sharada, it happened so long ago, but still there are traces, big traces in our everyday life, and this work really getting in touch with our inner power, raising from the ashes and reclaiming our dignity as empowered, vulnerable women, will also bring a lot of healing in our ancestral lineage. For example, this is something that really blessed my life and is still blessing my life so profoundly. As more as I go deep, I really feel what happened in the past and that is still alive in me is healed slowly. And this will also pass on to future generations, to the women around us, to our daughters, nieces, friends, to the little ones that touches our life, because the world really needs an empowered, feminine, conscious, and strong, and yet vulnerable feminine to rise.
Beautiful. Yes, so important. We're not doing that just for ourselves. We do this for everyone around us, and that's also such a strong trait of the feminine awakening, that she doesn't do it just for herself. Like she heals herself and she reclaims her wholeness, but then she wants to share it with the whole universe. That's so beautiful. Like all the women that I see that are doing this work, they're so dedicated, they're so committed and so devoted to their own growth and to do this work, to heal and to get out of all this guilt and shame. And then the passion that flows into their work and into offering, it's mesmerizing. Like it gives you this life energy and this deep purpose and meaningfulness of life to then share your healing with others. And that's where one becomes a wounded or embodied healer. That's also what the Rising Witch is about, to really reclaim our wounded healer. So when we go through our own healing, like then we're blessing all the ancestors that have been before us, and also all those that are going to come, because the ones that have been before us are the ones that are going to come.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's such a strong trait of the feminine. She always does it for everyone, and it blesses everyone around her. Yeah. So thank you, Elisa, and for your time. And Elisa is going to have her class once a week, every Wednesday evening. So it's very beautiful or great for those that are living in Europe, because it's going to be Wednesday evening. So for those that are having duties during the day, they can join then Elisa's class in the evening. My class will be always Saturdays and Mondays. So Saturday is a day where for many people they can easier join. So we chose a time that works for almost all time zones. And then Monday will be early morning for Europe time, 7 a.m. So it's an embodiment, very deep embodiment practice before going into the day and into the week, to set you off with this practice for the whole week. In Bali, it will be the afternoon. And then we'll have pre-recorded material and exercises and sacred tasks that support you every week. So every week is dedicated to a topic. Like we begin with her story that is introduced by Dr. 𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏, who is going to really go deep into the story of the burning of the witches. And then the first week will all be dedicated to really clearly setting our goal for this 2 months journey together. And then the next module is dedicated to safety, belonging, and love. So really creating the foundation of being able to do this work, like what it means to be safe, and the understanding of resourcing, the understanding of grounding, how to nurture and take care of yourself as we go through the process. And then we will first dive into the trauma, because before we can ascend, like we gotta descend, we gotta look at the darkness, at the heaviness, at the sadness, know that it can be there. It might not be there for some, and it might be there for others. We don't know. Everything is welcomed, but it's important to acknowledge what has been there. Even if I grew up in the most healthiest, enlightened, sexually liberated family and think that I don't have any sexual trauma, but because you're also born into this time, we are part of the collective wound. So also from the standpoint of the self, we are one. So in one way or another, we are affected by what has happened to others and what is happening still today around us. So to be able to really then fully step into our full pleasurable, erotic, orgasmic, embodied being, like we are honoring what has been and what is still there very much on the bottom of the ocean. And then we're going to go and look into the shadow sides also, like what are the shadows that are there in our culture and in ourselves, the suppression that has been there, and the parts that are maybe sabotaging us from really stepping into our full witchy self. And then from then onward, it will all be, okay, what does it really mean to be sexually whole? How do I embrace my sexual wholeness? And how does that change my every way of being? And then we're going to learn many different practices that are deeply honoring and nurturing and invoking and inviting sensitivity into your body, and which then will transform your whole really experience of what it means to be an embodied woman. Because most of us have one sexual narrative or a sexual story, and we are used to that, and we don't even think that there's anything bad about it. And I'm not saying that there's anything bad about it, the way you've been treating yourself, or you've been with yourself, or with also an intimate relationship. But then when we start to see other ways that are deeply honoring and loving and kind, and where you are also part of the pleasure, where you're also being really the center and meant to be able to experience pleasure and arousal and orgasm, which for so many is not a reality. So many women don't experience any pleasure when they're intimate, or don't even experience any orgasms, and they think that's how it is. It's not meant to be pleasurable. And that's simply not true. It's simply not true. So when we start to do these practices that are coming from the Taoist tradition, and also some from the Tantric tradition, and self-love rituals, we start to really change the narrative, learn a new narrative, and start to just have a completely different felt sense, embodied experience. And that in turn then gives vitality. You increase your self-image, your self-confidence. You'll just simply be more happy with yourself and in yourself, and needing less attention from others. It's not that I'm saying that it's all going to go away, but it's definitely going to shift and transform very profoundly. Because when we start to reclaim our intuitive and natural powers, we become independent women. And wow. Wow, how amazing, if we suddenly don't need to be validated by others anymore, or we don't need to be seen by others. It's beautiful and we love it. It's not that we shouldn't, but we don't need it. It can be out of fullness. It can be a play, and it can be just simply in deep gratitude for the magic that we are existing, but it's not coming out of a deep need. And so we're really getting out of that victimization, also the role of being a victim, and that any idea that we have that we are broken in any way, all of that will be neutralized, and you'll discover how beautiful and perfect and whole you are, no matter what has happened to you. And so there's so many beautiful practices in this course that are given every week with sacred tasks, all the way to the end, where we then also go into the relationship and how can we bring this work into my relationship, if and when I choose to share this kind of practices and work with a partner or partners. But before, that is at least in my belief and my knowledge and my experience, and I know in so many others, that before I can truly be intimate and have a orgasmic, beautiful, honoring, mind-blowing relationship with another person, I gotta have that relationship with myself. And so the work is really, it is all with myself. And so we'll do that first very strongly, and then the last part is dedicated to bringing that into relationships. And then we'll be having a beautiful witch ritual, which is a surprise. I'm not going to say much about it, but very special witch ritual. So this is how the course is formatted, and you're going to have lifetime access to all the recordings and the material. And Elisa and I, we are here, and also the other teachers that you will meet. There's also one more extra guest teacher coming, a yoni specialist. So you have access for as long as the internet exists, or we are on the internet, to all the material that then you can also share with your clients or your sisters. So you will have all the transcriptions and the practices so that you can share that with your community as well. So we're going to start in a week, and I'm inviting you with all my heart to join us in this Rising Witch program. And thank you for being here today and joining us. So grateful for you being in our community, in our sisterhood. And I'm so grateful to our amazing Be Woman sisterhood community and all the ones that are offering now, that are working, playing behind the scene. We have an amazing team. We have designer, graphic designer. We have community Devi circles that we are now offering every single Sunday. We have free circles. We do invite donations, but if you cannot afford any circle, we want this to be available to you and a gift from us. We have 4 trained women's circle facilitators that are 5 that are holding circles every Sunday. So I'm also deeply grateful for these beautiful sisters and everyone that is just playing behind the scenes for keeping this platform going and for sharing and spreading the knowledge of the living goddess. So thank you, Elisa, for being here today. And
thank you, Sharada.
Everything you do. Elisa has been behind the scene and since almost the beginning of the Woman Project, and I couldn't have done it without her.
Thank you for being the light of this project, for your creativity and amazingness. I could listen to you for hours and days and weeks.
Good.
If you have questions, Devis, don't hesitate. Reach out or as you want on Facebook, Instagram, Gmail. We will answer your questions.
Yeah, we will. Have a beautiful dark moon. It's dark moon today, very, very auspicious day. And do a little moon ritual. If you want to join for a little moon ritual, come back in 20 minutes for the mistress class dedicated to how to transform your life, in your intimate life, into one filled with confidence, joy, and magic. So, everyone, lots of love.
Oh.